Should we wait a minute or so? Good to go. All right, guys, what is going on? I'm coming from Tennessee today, actually. Away visiting some family. And I heard the storms last night at home are crazy. Hopefully everyone is safe. I'm pretty excited for today. Today, as my first year as the YPN chairman, we had a lot of successes with some events and some other stuff coming up. I know the big one that got a good amount of news and paper coverage was the superhero cleanup that me and my team helped develop. So we hope to continue doing that. And we were able to bring to you today Jordan, Piper, and Sam. They're all going to talk about some awesome things that I personally take for granted and kind of lose track of, especially with the season coming up, the slow season. We kind of just lose ourselves a little bit. So they're going to each go off. I encourage you to post your questions in the chat. We can go over the questions at the end of each person's segment. Yeah, feel free. Jordan, you're up.
Let me figure out how to unmute myself. I think I'm good. Cool, guys. Well, what's up, Pennsylvania? I was just telling the guys on the call before here. I don't know anybody from that state, so definitely reach out to me. Let's connect. I would love to collaborate, with everyone all across the country. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here. Thank you guys for putting this on. And it's an honor to be here with Sam and Piper, two of my good friends from the National Association of Realtors Advisory Board, young professionals. So yeah, today my topic is we're talking, and it's honestly, I think it's a perfect time. Well, before I dive in, let me first introduce myself. So Jordan Pyle out of Chicago. That's probably important for me to start there. So I've been selling real estate now for the last 8 years, full-time, fresh out of college. So I was one of those crazy kids that got in at 22, 23, really no plan B and just have been a series of failing forward over the last 8 years, getting ready to go into number 9, which is 2022, which is just crazy to think that we're already there. But this year we'll do about, I think about 50 units, just right around 400, 500,000 in gross commission income. And it's myself, 2 other agents, and I have 2 administrative staff. So just to give you guys kind of a picture of where the business is at, and we're looking to definitely grow and improve year after year. So I think that's where I want to start. And for anyone that wants to reach out, jordan.pyle on Instagram is probably the best way to get a hold of me. So feel free to check me out there. Business planning and goal setting, I think they go hand in hand. So I don't know. I would love if people wanted to throw their screens on so I can see who I'm looking at here and get a little bit of a feel for, who the audience is. I don't know if you guys want to pop on or if maybe a couple of people could just introduce themselves. Let me know kind of how far into the business you are, just so I can get an understanding of who we're talking to today. Who's going to be the brave soul?
You all are beautiful. We want to see you.
Cheryl Jones, do you mind? I can unmute you. There we go.
I'm sorry. And what did you want us to review? How long we've been in the business?
Yeah, I just want to hear from a couple of people to understand kind of where you guys are at your current stage of your business.
Sure. I am 10 years in the business. I was actually first licensed in Tennessee. So I was licensed there for 5 years and have been back in Pennsylvania for about 6 years or 5. I guess that doesn't add up. So anyway, yeah, that's basically where I'm at.
Okay, cool. Maybe just one more and then we can go from there. What about Naja? Do you mind? I'm gonna ask you to unmute. It's about getting uncomfortable, and that's our fastest way to grow. So.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a mortgage loan officer. I had joined our bar a couple of months ago, and I saw that they were offering this cool kind of lunch kind of thing. So I was interested. I don't have a business, but I would be interested in starting one up. So I just thought maybe, I can jump in here and learn a few things.
I love it. Love it. And that's, just between you two, they're so vastly different. So that's what I love about what I'm getting ready to talk about, which is just the application of this kind of goal setting and business planning setup can be, anybody can kind of take this in and implement this and make this work for them. So I want to start just high level, talking about, all of us this time of year, it's, if you're planning your year for the following year at this point, like push hard toward the end of the year, but start thinking about what your 2022 goals are, right? So start thinking about the following year and finish this year strong. but like we want to start doing this around October, like usually October, November, every single year is when we start sitting down and talking about next year's plans. Cause we just don't want to wake up January 1 and be like, okay, now what are we going to do? We want to kind of move into the new year with some momentum. So what's worked best for us is starting this in October and then giving that time to kind of implement itself ahead of time so that at the start of the year, you already have that momentum to carry it through. So one thing, just, let's say that you're a team leader, you're on a team, you are in a different industry, maybe you're a loan officer or something else. I think how I've been taught and what I like to talk about in terms of the people on my team and other agents that I, discuss and mastermind and collaborate with in terms of goals and business planning is defining. And I learned this from a mentor of mine named Tommy Choi, and he helped me kind of understand my passions and my interests, right? And essentially building a business plan around those. So what I like to refer to these two, or refer to these as, are your interest buckets, right? So for everyone that's listening here, like all of us have our unique interests, and that's why goal setting is not just a, one size fits all approach. So for example, I'll use myself to let you know, like just, and start thinking about if you could narrow this down to, let's call it 3 to 5 interest buckets. And let's just focus there. So for example, mine are business being number 1, which is, business, entrepreneurship, real estate falls into that category. That is something I love, so I can talk all day about it. I want to know other people that are also interested in those things. The second one, personal development and mindset, right? So I'm huge into my personal growth and my mindset. So wanting to push that out into the world to ultimately attract more of that into my life, right? Health and fitness being the 3rd, financial education, and then contribution being the 5th, which is like my involvement with YPN. I give back to the Alzheimer's Association in various different ways throughout the year. So I encourage you all to think about what are these things? And, for somebody else, it might be business, cooking, fashion, like what are those things? And I think that's where you start in terms of how you're going to build your business plan moving into the next year. And if you're on a team or you have a team, everybody should be encouraged to do this for themselves, because at the end of the day, the way that real estate is going is that everyone is responsible for their own personal brand within whatever other brand they're within, whether they're with Coldwell Banker, they're with Keller Williams or Compass. Everyone has their own brand because people want to work and buy and sell with, Jordan Pyle, right? And maybe I have Pyle Residential and I have people on my team, but I'm still encouraging them to go out there and, build their own personal brands. And then it just becomes this big conglomerate, right? So everybody can go and do this. So then once you have these, you're going to kind of want to just now seek out ways that you can plug yourself into these types of networks. So if you're just trying to meet more people and grow your database, if health and fitness is one of your goals, okay, well, let me be more intentional about taking, 2 classes a month or 2 classes a week at the gym so I can try to meet some new people. Or maybe it's personal development and mindset. Maybe you join a 5 a.m. club or something like that, right? So just try to seek out these type of growth environments is what I like to refer to them as. And maybe it's YPN, right? Maybe that's one of these areas for you, as it is for me. And really start to just focus there, narrow the focus in on those categories and don't worry about all the other things. And ultimately, that's what we want, right? If we're just always emitting what we're passionate about, we're just going to attract more of that in all different categories. So that would be the first step that I would recommend to people. And I want to encourage you again to put questions in the chat box as I'm going and as Piper and Sam are going to be, giving their sessions, and we'll kind of answer those as we go. And we'll also have some time at the end of each section to answer some questions too. So, I want to actually dive in if okay. And I want to share my screen, Jonathan or Brandon, that's going to be possible, right? Okay. So here we go. You guys see this spreadsheet here? Okay, looks like it. So this is what, so what I want to lead you through is basically, goal setting to the now. And in goal setting, business planning, it all kind of comes around in the same way, but I like to start here first. So what I like to do, and if you're taking notes, we're just going to look at the business and personal in terms of goal categories, but really there's about 6 or 7 that I like to set goals in, right? So we're just going to look at these 2, but what I want you to do is take your 3-year, sorry about that. Your 5-year, your 2-year, and your 1-year goals. 5 years, 2 years, and 1-year goals. And you're basically, I want you to start thinking about, 2 different things that you want to accomplish in those different categories over those different periods of time. So for example, all the different goal categories, one of them is business, right? The other one is your health and fitness. One of them is financials. One of those is personal. So that's 4. You might have another goal for your relationship. Like that might be another category with all your relationships in your life. You're investing. So think about 6 or 7 of those with, business and personal being 2 of them, that you want to set 2 to 3 goals maximum in each of these 5-year, 2-year, and 1-year spans of time. So then just to give you an example, and I can send this to anybody if anyone wants to use this. This is basically, I boiled back, and it's, called goal setting to the now. So I took my 5-year goal and I said, okay, if I want to hit that in 5 years, what do I need to do in 2 years? And then from that 2-year goal is basically where you see some of these 2021 goals here, that these are things I set at the beginning of 2021, just to keep it in track. And then you'll see as it goes down, you have quarterly, you have monthly. So the goal here is that you're going to walk away today, or at least, shortly after this conversation today, with what is the daily activities I have to do in my business and in my life and all these different goal categories. And I call it my daily scoreboard, because if you focus on winning the day, ultimately it's all going to compound to win the year, win the month, and all the different categories, right? So I want you to be intentional. So I like to go in here and let's just use this top goal for this example, which is this year I wanted to exceed 50 home sales pended in 2021, right? And I'm glad to say we're like right on track. We're going to have to push to get there. But the key here is that we've been revisiting this and looking at this over and over throughout the year to make sure that we hit it. So go through, and basically I would encourage you to do 3 to 5 maximum in those 6 or 7 different categories of your goal setting, whatever you want to do there. But then more importantly, something I adopted actually at the start of this year, which has worked incredibly well, because I've had a lot of years where we set a goal. Let's just use the example of 50 home sales, and you come up, half of that, drastically short. So this year I read the 12-week year. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with the 12-week year, but go check out that book and really take that in and think about setting your goals this way. So basically what that is they're saying, if you break up a year of 52 weeks into, 12-week segments, that gives you basically the 4 quarters of the year. So how can you take that annual goal, again, let's say it's 50 home sales, put that on the shelf and say, okay, if it's 50, how many do I need to do each quarter? And then that's now the goal that you focus on and you build your metrics around, right? And what I love about the 12-week year is if you put something too far into the distance, I don't know if you guys are like me, but like, it's so hard to get motivated on the daily to achieve a 5-year goal. Like it's just, you're not going to see the level of growth that you want to see if you're focusing too far in the future. So what I heard actually this morning, it was kind of weird timing because I knew I was talking about this today, was I was listening to a Jim Rohn on YouTube, godfather of personal development. And he said, there's a difference between your destination and your direction, right? So you can't change a 5-year destination overnight. I mean, you can't wake up with a 5-year goal and it be there the next day. But what you can change and what you have absolute control of it is your direction. So overnight, you can change the direction. So really that's all this is we're giving our goals and our actions, we're giving a direction. So then I like to bake it out to a quarterly segments. And what's awesome about that is if you add up 12 weeks times 4, that's only 48 weeks. We all know there's 52 weeks in a year. So what it has allowed me to do is that every year going into 2021, every quarter, I worked as hard as I could for 12 weeks, pursuing those 12-week goals. And then I had 1 week I could take as a vacation, or I could take it off, or maybe it was 2 or 3 days throughout the month, right? But when you give yourself that outline, it's like, okay, let me just put my head down and focus for 3 months, knowing that there's a vacation or there's something as a reward at the end of that. And then that then gives you the necessary rejuvenation. And then now you relook at this and you relook at those annual goals and you say, okay, let me now take this into the second quarter of the year. And then just continually revisiting that every single week, every day, and throughout the year. So let me know if there's any questions there. If anybody that's moderating and kind of controlling this, if there's any questions, shoot them out to me. But that's essentially what this is we're taking 2021, and I haven't started this yet because again, we start this in October, and we're going to do this for our team, is really understanding what we want. And then we bake that all the way down to monthly. And then what's most powerful is weekly and then your daily, right? So those 50 home sales, they're not going to show up if you're tracking the amount of closings you have. So you need to bake it out to, okay, well, if it's is it something monthly you want to track? Do you want to track, okay, how many appointments am I going on this month? How many contacts do I need to do every day? Honestly, the younger you are in the business, I encourage you to start with a smaller activity to track. So meaning if you're brand new to the business, I would track your amount of people you're adding to your database, or the amount of people that you give a business card to, or that you talk to real estate about, in a week. And then as that progresses, then you can start tracking, and okay, now I'm, whatever the case may be, I'm listing five properties every month, or I'm going on 12 appointments. So my weekly goals is essentially that, right? So I want to, generate 10, and this is from June. I just gave you guys an example of an old one that I modified a little bit just for this thing. But so like this week, in order to hit the pended 5 units in the month of July, this week, I need to generate 10 leads or referrals, right? So then really what that shakes out to is this week, every single day, I need to find 2 of these leads or referrals. I want to record 3 videos, because a huge pillar of my real estate business is, online and basically social media. Do 3 Facebook Lives. And then this was just a weekly task. I had to get this listing on the market, right? So this is kind of how this will all bake out. And I would focus on the next step then, which is, I think I'm good on time, 11:18. Yeah. So I think it's 12:18 your time. But so then the other piece, if all that makes sense, I'm happy to send this to you just so you can track this. I think it's super important just to have it all in one spot. And that's been super powerful for us this year. And looks like we're gonna hit those goals that we talked about. And quite frankly, it's the first year that I've set big goals and actually hit, because I started to think about it in smaller chunks. So I think that's super important. But then you might be sitting here now and saying, okay, well, where am I getting this business? And I think that's the next piece of the puzzle. I think you start with the mindset, you start with the goals, and then you bake it out to, okay, now where is this business coming from? And you can build strategies around those different lead sources. So I say that all agents, I think really before you get anything creative going, and maybe you're far, far into a business, or you're 10 years and you have 20 agents and your team's a lot bigger than mine, at the end of the day, I think there's really 3 main types of lead sources that everyone should focus on. Just again, to keep the focus, compress the focus basically so that you can achieve larger results. So I think the number one thing, at least for our team, is we want to teach people how to fish. So one thing I've always been good at is my business is all pretty much referral, right? I have some paid things that I do, but for the most part, 90% of my business is referral. And I know that if I want to grow and scale that team, that does have to eventually change. But what I can also do, in order to feed the team and basically be able to allow them to have as many opportunities as they want, there might have to be other things in place outside of my own personal database. But everyone should learn their sphere of influence and putting a database touch system in place. If you don't have that, that's like the number one place to start is, what do you want to do for your database and what's the frequency of that? So is that events that you're doing on a quarterly basis? Maybe you just have 2 client appreciation parties a year. I'm just throwing out ideas, but do you want to call everybody in your database once a quarter? Do they get a monthly email, right? So what are the touch points that you're going to exercise and the frequency of those for your database? And let's just call it your top 100 people. Like if you don't have 100, go find your 100 and just focus on those. And if you have more, then, apply this to as many people as possible, right? But then the second bucket here that I think, or the lead source after your sphere of influence, and if you haven't mastered that, or you're not extracting the amount of business out of that, quite frankly, I'm not. So just full transparency, and it's hard to, unless you're super, super consistent and diligent with it. But unless you're like getting a good return out of that database, there's no need to go look for the next shiny object yet. And I think that's something that's easy to do, because it's the boring, simple, hard things that like you have to do every day, which is call 5 people in your database. Or nowadays, honestly, everyone used to talk about calling, like I'm a DM, I'm a text. And what I love is, and people always comment on it, is text, video text. And so literally some days I'll just be like, hey, I was just thinking about you. It's been a while, like let's grab drinks soon and catch up. And like, that's just a quick little simple way for them to, it's not just a phone call at the middle of the day. Cause like what I found is like, you call people, they're like, hey man, I'm at work right now. It's like 11 a.m. Like, what's up? And so I just was like, all right, let's just find a more passive way to do this. And I think with the next category of leads that we're going to talk about, there's a really awesome way to take the online to an offline meeting, right? So the second thing I think everyone should focus about is, what is your online presence? What does that look like? You know, we all know video is king right now, digital brand, all of that. People want to go online to start their home search, and they also want to go online to understand who they might be working with. So making sure that you have some type of presence on all these. I did start out in my career trying to be like, okay, I want to focus on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, like all the different things. Like I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, Instagram is like my favorite. So like, let me just do as much as I can on Instagram. And I think each one serves a purpose, but just understand where your people are at that you want to attract, and just make sure you have a presence there. And I think we all know I'm not the social media guru. You guys need to have Rebecca Donatelli out to speak to you guys, because she's awesome with the whole social media strategy. And a lot of other people are a lot better than me. So let's just put it that way. But it's so critically important some way or another. 99% of all of my deals come some way from my online presence, right? And that might be one of you guys seeing an Instagram post saying, hey, I have a buyer who's moving to Chicago. I'm going to call Jordan because it seems like he runs a nice operation there, right? So it all stems there one way or another. So it's super important right now and into the future to have a presence there. And then the third bucket, so we talked about sphere of influence or your database, your online presence being number 2. And your third is, I always tell agents to pick one old school strategy. And this means basically, okay, is it going to be in our market? Open houses are popular. So are you going to sit 2 or 3 open houses a weekend? Are you going to cold call? Some people like that, the FSBO expired approach. Are you just going to own social media? Are you going to own YouTube and just put out videos? So there's all these different ways. But I think, and I say old school tech approaches, and I guess YouTube and all that isn't quite there anymore, but what is that other thing that you can go do? And maybe it's sending mailers to a neighborhood. As long as you're kind of niche down, I think that's another good strategy there. So those are kind of the 3 things that I would focus on in terms of setting your goals and how you're actually going to hit those goals. And then lastly, the last 2 minutes here, I just want to talk to you about the daily scoreboard. This has completely changed my world. So once you realize like, okay, every week I have to do this in order to hit my monthly, my quarterly, my annual goal, what are the 5 to 7 things every single day that are non-negotiables? And that doesn't mean you're going to be 100 for 100, but try to be 75 to 80% on this. So to give you an example of what that might look like, to hit all categories of where I'm setting goals, and it's that daily small domino that you just keep knocking over and over and over again, that will add up and compound into the larger goal. So for example, for me, waking up at 5 a.m. has always been one of those. If I wake up at 5 a.m. and I do my morning routine, like my days are on fire. And I know when I skip those days that it's just not going to be as good of a day. So that I have identified on my daily scoreboard, like that has to happen. Meditation is another one. So this kind of goes into the personal, this goes into the spiritual, the different other categories that you might be setting goals in. And then, so, let's call those are the first 2 things, or actually the third one would be is exercise every day. So that would be the third thing for my body and for my health. Right. And then you might have a goal of, okay, every day in the office, when I start working, that goal is 5 contacts a day, or 1 social media post, or film 1 video. What is that thing that's going to move the needle the most in your business, and do that thing first when you start your day. So find out what are those 5 to 7 things every single day that you have to do to be prepared to continue moving the ball down the court, or the ball down the field, whatever you want to say, without just setting an annual goal and then forgetting about it, and then waking up at the end of the year being like, how did I not get there? So I think this is so critical, just to peel back the onion to get as far back to that little activity that you can do. If you just focus on controlling that, it takes away so much of the overwhelm, so much of the feeling of like, oh, I'm so behind on my goals. Just control what you can control. And ultimately, that's how I have approached, business planning and goal setting for myself and for my team. So that's all I want to say there. I hope that's somewhat helpful. I know I rambled, and that's just kind of the setting we have here, but I want to open it up to questions.
Hey, Jordan, I'm
stop
sure
my
like
share.
these are, I'm sorry, what?
I was just stopping my share.
Oh, I'm sure it's really hard to stay track on top of all these goals. How do you, if you lose, like get off track of that, what's a good way that you find to get back on track and stay motivated?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know who just asked that question. I can't see it on my
Brandon
screen.
did.
Oh, geez. I was looking at the bottom here. Sorry. So you were saying if you get off track, you lose motivation.
Yeah, how do you,
Yeah.
what's a good way to get back on track and to stay motivated on these daily grinds?
100%. I think it takes time to understand what makes you tick. Like literally for me, it's funny because I had a Tony Robbins thing like a couple of weeks ago, and he talks about your state, right? It's all about getting into the right state. So for me, I've known that, okay, if I start to feel some type of way, or I lose motivation, or I get off a goal, it doesn't mean you have to just scrap it away, right? And so one thing that I like to take into consideration is like this idea of like, just don't miss twice. So like, it's okay if you want to work out every single day and you miss a day, just don't miss 2 days in a row. Because as soon as you start missing 2 days in a row, then it's so much harder to get back on the horse. So that helps me a lot. And just kind of thinking about, okay, well, don't beat myself up today about the guilt of whatever the shortcoming is. Just get back on the horse tomorrow. And I know that, okay, if I want to feel my best, I'm planning my day the night before. I'm waking up at 5 a.m. I'm working out. I'm meditating. I'm taking a cold shower and I'm starting my day. Like I do that. And then when I'm in that zone, another way to do it is I like to seek out my different growth environments. And that's why I love YPN. Not trying to plug it, but at the same time I am, because it's just, there's other people like, and that's the thing is everyone has the ups and downs. The burnout is a real thing in real estate. And I think that by executing a plan and actually having some framework on how to operate and giving yourself some slack in that, I think that allows you to be like, okay, even if I missed 3 days and I told myself, don't miss more than one in a row, like just get back on it the next day. And I like to listen to things, motivational stuff like, Jim Rohn and podcasts and all that. And typically after I do that for a few minutes, I'm ramped back up and I'm ready to go. So.
Excellent.
Yep.
Awesome.
Who else? I think I got 2 minutes here.
I have
Piper.
a question, Jordan.
Yeah. Talk to me.
So with your goals, do you revisit these with your team on a consistent basis? Is this part of like your team meetings, or do you have your planning in October and just shelf it? What's your process for that?
Yeah. Well, so full transparency, my team and we've pretty much only been together for 6 months, and we just made a brokerage change recently. So we're kind of redialing in some things. So from that standpoint, a lot of this has been my own experience of doing this with myself. And the answer is it needs to be brought up frequently. And it's more built around the standards. And so as I'm thinking about how I'm going to grow my team, I have 2 people today, but I want to grow a lot more than that. But I want to make sure they're supported and successful first. It's more about what are the standards, and those standards come from what are the daily activities that need to be done, or the monthly activities. So I think that as long as you have those standards in place, you're constantly measuring success, because we are checking in on the standards, right? We're checking in. Okay, you told yourself you need 5 appointments this month. Where are you at with it? And we do, we've been testing this, but right now we're doing about a 30-minute meeting on Monday. And then on Thursday, we do another 30-minute meeting. And then we're texting all day long, in a text thread too. So we have 2 places throughout the week where we touch base, and we try to go through an agenda that includes checking on our progress.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yep. Maybe one more, or are we good?
Anybody? Okay.
Cool. Well, I just want to thank you guys again. If this is valuable, let me know. I can share any of my goal setting templates with any of you guys. If you want those, just let me know. And
Yeah, that
I'm
was great.
super excited to hear what Piper and Sam have to say.
Don't mind the old man in the background. We're on vacation, sorry. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Jordan. That was awesome. It's all this stuff that I really need to remind myself of doing, and you really put it into a great, clear aspect for everyone. I really like that. Thank you so much. I believe next up we have Piper.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to try to figure out how to share my screen. You would think after being on Zoom for like the past 2 or 8 years, it feels like I should have learned how to do this by now. But let me try to share my presentation. Oh, it might work. Oh, hey, I'm feeling pretty good about that. By the way, just so you guys know, I'm super goofy because I find most of these things to be kind of intolerable. So at the very least, I'm going to try to make you laugh. So my name is Piper Knoll. I am from Denver, and I've been part of the YPN advisory board for, I think, the last 5 or 6 years. I had the opportunity last year to be the chair, and it was really fun. And I've got to meet so many amazing people from across the country. It's just been truly, truly a treat. And even though Jordan didn't want to like plug YPN, I sure will. I can tell you guys that getting involved in YPN at the local level and then state and national has probably been one of the best things I've ever done for my business. And not just my business, but for me as a realtor and as a leader and as the human that I am at this point. I've had so much growth over the last 8 years because of this journey. And I do hope that you guys will all get involved in some way. You'll find a spot that maybe works for you, and this can kind of be your tribe like it is for some of us. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about improving your business by using systems and how to get your life back. So I have been in business for 16 years, and I am very, very much a systems nerd. Everything that I do in my business is systematic, but it did take a really long time to get there. And I am, like Jordan, I'm happy to share anything that I talk about with you guys. I'm happy to share any of my processes or checklists or anything like that. I'm going to do like a really kind of high level overview today. And then if anybody wants to get that information from me, I'm happy to share it. So here we go. Improving your business by using systems. Oh gosh, now how do I do this? Oh, here we go. Okay. So systems can just be easily defined by a set of processes, tools, people, and strategies that work together to solve a problem or achieve a goal. I think a lot of people, when they start talking about systems in business, you kind of clam up a little bit because it seems really daunting and it seems really intense, but systems don't have to be. Really, when it comes to working on systems and figuring out the right strategy for you, you need to figure out how to solve the problem. So probably 10 years ago, when I started to get more involved in leadership and really started to, this is going to sound kind of bad, but when I started to actually look at real estate as a career, 6 years into it, and I wanted to get more intentional, I had to figure out how to do a couple things. My biggest pain point was that my business was growing and I couldn't serve it. I was not willing to work more than I already was. I was probably working 50 to 60 hours a week at the time. And I did not know how to grow without taking on that extra time. And I am, quite honestly, a little bit selfish with my time. There's so much that we can give to this industry and so much we can do for this. But if you are struggling with some of the systems and processes, it makes real estate a lot more challenging than it needs to be. So for me, that was a huge pain point, and I had to figure out how to solve that. The other thing is, as I was starting to get involved in YPN and getting referrals and the phone was ringing more, I was more in touch with my sphere and things were going on. I needed to be an in-demand realtor versus an on-demand realtor. And kind of what I mean by that, it's kind of like fast food, right? I don't want to be an order taker. I want to be an advocate and a partner in this. So as business was getting, a little bit more intense and things were happening, I was having to say no to a lot of personal stuff to accommodate clients. And I was having to do that because I just didn't have a good process and system to handle the business. So that was kind of my problems that I was trying to solve about 8 to 10 years ago when I really took the system stuff seriously. So these are my daughters. This is Eden and Macy. And my oldest one, the blondie, she is actually a freshman in college. These are her senior pictures from last year. And my younger one is a sophomore in high school. And I'm sure other people that are on this have kids as well. And what I was noticing is, as my business was growing, I was telling my favorite people in the world that I couldn't do the things that they wanted me to do with them. I was having to cancel trips to the zoo because I had to go show properties to somebody that just called me. I had to drop everything to get that client, and I wasn't working a process. So as I started to look at my why and telling these poor girls, I'm sorry, mom can't be here again. And I've been in real estate basically their entire lives. That's all they've known from me. I had to make some changes. So systems, what are they and why do they matter? So kind of the first one, really having a set process for handling leads and transactions. This is really, really important for me to have clarity in my business and also to become scalable. And when I say scalable, what I mean is growing a team. I was part of a team. 10 years ago, I joined a team and I kind of took over a lot of the systems and processes. And we had some kind of set things. Hey, you get a phone call, you give them a call back, you ask them some questions, you schedule an appointment. I took that system and I really grew it to something that was much more meaningful. What we use right now, it's called the Getting to Know You. Yes, it's a very cheesy play on my last name. but it works really well because it's catchy and people enjoy it. It does take about 20 minutes for somebody to fill out. So when I have a prospect call me, say, hey, I got your name from so-and-so, I can qualify them really quickly, let them know that we work as a team, let them know that somebody else besides me will be their main contact, which is really, really nice to be able to do. And then send them this questionnaire that's then sent out by my chief of staff, who sends it out. And it's a 20-minute questionnaire where we basically get all the personal information that we need about somebody to really tailor the real estate experience to their needs. So that was really important for me. That has saved me so much time, energy, and money on chasing down people and being able to take control of the process. The next thing is by having systems, you can create really consistent service and a very good client experience. About 6 years ago, I had a month where I sold a $90,000 investment condo and a $1.6 million home. Two very different properties. And I was like hell-bent on making sure that it was the same process. I wanted both of those clients to get that higher level of service. So that's part of what really took me to that next level on building these systems. So that was a really, really big like aha moment for me. How can you give the same system and same service to different price points? What systems will also do for you is they're going to allow you to take on more referrals. Also, your clients are going to love the way that you do business because they understand what's going on. You can explain to them your process. You're telling them, hey, this is the journey we're going to go on and this is why. So it takes a lot of that mystery out of it for them. I think as realtors, we forget that our clients don't know what really goes into a real estate process. And if we don't take the time to sit down and say, hey, before we get started on this journey and start looking at houses, we need to really make sure you understand the process, we're not doing them a good service. So that's the other part of this, having a great process when they come in, making sure that we're giving a consistent service across the board, whether it's me or another agent on my team, and then it grows those referrals and raving fans of your business. But the most important thing of this is it gives you back your time and energy. I know I don't speak for just myself when I say that that's the biggest thing that realtors struggle with. Having time to do the things you need to do is really, really critical. And it's really hard to not get bogged down in these little details. So this is systems and kind of why they matter. So what can you systemize? The question is pretty general. Quite honestly, you can systemize every part of your business if you just kind of figure out how to do it. These examples on the screen are all things that I have processes for. I do have a start to finish process on basically every single part of the transaction. NAR put out a stat a couple of years ago that said on average, from start to finish on a transaction, a realtor completes 182 tasks. That's a lot of tasks. There are a lot of different things from putting on a lockbox, ordering a sign, having photos taken on the sell side, on the buy side, showing properties, writing the contracts, all of those things. There's so many things. So where could you really add some systems in there and processes to make sure you're giving very consistent service? So just to kind of touch base on each of these really quick, the new prospect intake and qualification. For example, if I get a new referral, they're going to call me. They're going to tell me, hey, I got your name from so-and-so. I'm excited to work with you. I'm easily going to say, oh, we're so excited to work with you. Let me just let you know how we work really quick. I introduce them to the team. I let them know that of all the things we can do, we can't be in two places at one time. I'm not sure how big your market is, but Denver's huge. You know, Denver, you can spend a full day showing 8 properties if you don't time it right. And if you have different parts of the city that you're taking care of, that's a lot of time to commit to one person. And if we don't have a team, we're not able to service the amount of clients that we do. So once we kind of set them up with the agent on the team, then we do an in-person meeting where we go through all of the expectations. With the pandemic, we do a lot of stuff on Zoom right now as well. And then we go through our process as well. So by the time that we actually have a client ready to go look at houses, they're approved by a lender. They understand the process. They know what it looks like to write a strong offer. And they've had all of their questions answered and they've seen the forms that we use in Colorado. Then when we do find a house that really works, we can confidently make that offer, knowing that they understand how to write the offer that best fits their needs. So that does take a little bit of time, but it saves a lot of time on the back end because you're not just answering those questions constantly when you get to inspection, when you get to appraisal, when you have loan conditions. So that's kind of the first thing on that. When we meet with people, we do have a very lengthy buyer and seller consultation. I'm happy to share this with you. We actually have it printed in a very nice book that we do give to our clients. We have an electronic version that I can share. And we really do go through the whole process with them and kind of a perfect world real estate. If everything aligns correctly, this is what this experience should look like to you. Then once we get under contract, we have everything templated. Every single email that you get from my team feels like it's very specific to you, but I wrote all of those emails years ago. I go through and I adjust them when we need to, but they are all standard form written emails. So every single client on our team that we're working with gets the exact same process every single time. So that's all templates. We also have closing and referral gifts that we do throughout the process. We know what our clients really like and what's important to them because that intake and that getting to know you form, they share with us if they enjoy red wine, if they have a gluten allergy. Because I'll tell you, there's nothing worse than going to a listing on a house you sold 5 years ago and see the $100 bottle of wine that you buy your clients sitting on top of their refrigerator. And that does happen. And it's like, oh, that's great. Didn't I buy that for you? And they're like, yeah, we don't drink, but it was from you, so we wanted to keep it. That's not a good, time and energy and money investment for your clients. So we have that process to really find out what they want. Plus, we do a lot of post-closing touches that we find out from that intake form. So these are just a few of the things that I have really built systems on. Like I said, every part of our business is systemized, where anybody on my team can pick up a client at any point in the process and know exactly what needs to happen and what emails go out next, et cetera, et cetera. So here's kind of a high-level overview of how I started doing this. And I'll be honest with you guys, it took me a long time to build all the systems that we have. So I will share with you anything that, that you'd like, but it does take some time. But you can start really high level. Don't overcomplicate it. So the first thing that I want you guys to kind of focus on is writing down a few things that you could see a pain point with. What problem are you trying to solve? Are you trying to make sure that you're giving an exact similar experience throughout the process? Are you wanting to make sure that there's certain touches to your clients? Are you wanting to make sure that you're handing things off to another team member correctly? Those are some things that you can create systems around. Then once you've identified that problem that you want to tackle first, you're going to figure out what's most important there. For some people, it's, hey, I want more time. I want more money. I need more energy. So figure out what those pieces are, and then you can tailor the system backwards. Before I start writing out a system or putting together the document that we're going to share with our team and clients, we're going to draft an outline. I like to kind of figure out what my goal is that I'm trying to get to and then work backwards. Just like Jordan was saying, it's kind of like reducing to the ridiculous. It's small things that create that big product. So you just have to figure out which things really make sense and which things are not a burden to you. So put it down on paper and just start playing with it. The nice thing about systems is there is no right or wrong way to do them. It's just whatever works for you. So because we've taken all of this time to do systems, I can now add a team member and give them a process manual that has every single piece of the business in there. How they interact with the client, what emails go out, every single piece of it is in there with hyperlinks. So it's a really easy thing for us now. And it creates an opportunity for me to recruit agents to our team by using that document. So that's one example of how extreme you can get on this. The other side of it is you might just have some checklists. Through the transaction, you might want to have 10 different touches. You want to make sure that you talk to them about house insurance, about their inspection. Create a checklist for that if the checklist is easier for you. So there's no right or wrong way to do it, which is really kind of nice. So here's just some tips that I'm going to share with you guys. Really on here, start small. You don't need to take everything at one time and do it. You can do one system a day, one a week, a couple a month, whatever really makes sense. What I found in our business is once I started doing them, it kind of became addictive to me. Again, kind of goofy and weird, but to me, I really became obsessed with having this exceptional experience to our clients across the board. So once I started doing one, I really invested probably 6 months of writing every email, crafting it, vetting it, really making sure everything looked right. So the next thing is really look from a high level. Imagine you're on an airplane. You look down and you see everything around you. You're not focused on one little area. You're trying to narrow your focus. And as you're kind of looking at what the most important goals are, you can kind of pick those pieces that build into it. The next thing, identify your biggest pain points. Start on those. If you really struggle with a pre-listing questionnaire for sellers, try to build that first. If you really have a struggle with buyers or with creating systems in emails, start with those things. So really figure out what's most important to you, because if you can solve that pain for you and realize that you get more time and energy from it, you're going to be more invested in doing other systems. The next thing, review your systems all the time. So we have weekly team meetings. Everybody on the team is involved in those. They're on Mondays. Our transaction manager, she'll go through and say, hey, on this email, because this timing has changed, we might want to change these on the templates. So we're constantly reviewing them and making sure they're relevant and accurate. And we edit them as we need. So with the pandemic, for example, we had to add a bunch of stuff for pandemic. All of a sudden we're showing houses in masks and gloves and having to sanitize. And that was something we had to add into all of our marketing material and our processes across the board. So now it looks like in Colorado, we might be coming back to some of that, hopefully not, but we've kept everything so we can add it back in if we need to. The final kind of tip here for you guys on this is to really practice your process. Once you get things figured out, make sure they're fluid to you, make sure that they make sense, and have other people in your team or in your brokerage look at them and say, hey, does this make sense? If you were to pick up my business, if I gave you these, guidelines, would you understand what I'm trying to tell you? That's really kind of important to make sure that your business is kind of pickup proof. The reason that's important is because as realtors and small business owners, we don't necessarily look at our business as something that has value to others. If you build your business with systems and you have a great book of business that you really invest in that sphere on, you're going to have a business that you can actually retire from, sell to somebody else, and have some income in the future. So the systems and processes are very important if that's a goal of yours. So what have systems done for my business? A lot. Before I was really focused on the system side of things, I was struggling all the time. I was, again, missing stuff for my kids. I was not in control of my business. I was working 60 or 70 hours a week, and none of that was something that I wanted to do. So by having these systems in place, I've been able to grow our team and create opportunities and jobs for people, which is something that's really important to me. I want to be able to provide that opportunity to others. Also, my team has exceptional clarity on what their expectations are. The agents on my team, they go out and sell houses. The transaction manager on our team, she handles the paperwork. Everybody has a clear role in what they do. So what this has done for us year to date, we've closed $35 million in business so far, and we've helped 53 families. For the first time ever, I think our team's going to break $1 million gross commission income, which is phenomenal. I didn't even think that was something that I could do. But by having systems in place, it kind of goes on autopilot for you. And before you know it, and I'm sure Jordan can tell you this too, and Sam, before you know it, you've met your goals. We'll actually have our year-to-date goal of 40 million in closed business before, I think, November 15th. So pretty excited about that. But the biggest thing for me is that all of my team members, we have a 6-hour maximum workday. I don't want people working after hours. I don't want people working in the evenings unless they have to show houses or meet a seller. We don't respond to emails in the evening. We're able to take time and say, look, we accomplished our job today. We earned our day. We get to go have time with our families in the evenings. And all of our clients understand, because we set up our business that way, that we are going to do things during business hours. And when it comes to, night and evening stuff, if they need to reach us, we're still available, but we're probably with our families. So that's been a really, really big thing for our business. Now, I think you guys can probably attest and understand that real estate is not the only thing in life that's important. Real estate for me, and I'm sure most of you, is a way to accomplish a great financial situation for your families and allow you the ability to go do things that you actually want to do. As you can see here, golf and baseball, and I don't know if you see the wall behind me, I am a avid baseball fan. That is a very time-consuming hobby. Baseball games are not short. So I wanted to be able to go to games as much as possible. With the systems we have in place, I absolutely can. Recently, I picked up golf. Last year, I started playing, and man, you're going to spend 4 or 5 or 6 hours on the golf course every time you go. You can't do that if you don't have systems in place. But if you do have some of these things, and again, start small, just start building little things and grow from it, you can have your business basically on autopilot, and you can do the things you actually want to do with your time, not just sell houses. So that is kind of my whole system thing. I can answer any questions you guys have, but this is my team. I have kind of the breakdown. I have 3 buyer's agents. My husband is in real estate. He does not sell. And my mom-in-law is in real estate. She does sell, but she does her own business. So she's not in my kind of my production totals. So that is how I built systems. Sorry, that was probably really quick. Any questions?
Any questions? That was awesome. I know I'm only in the business about 4 years, and I struggle with just a system, and I found myself just changing it all the time and never really getting anything really solid down. So I started making my own templates and stuff, because sometimes the stuff your brokerage provides, it's just not your way. So I've typed up a whole bunch of notes and systems and checklists and Excels that fit me and the way I do things. So it's really important to get that down. You said how long did it take you to get like a real system down?
So to build all of the email templates and kind of the processes to grow the team, it probably took me about 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
And that was really writing everything. I think a lot of agents do this. They have like a Word document that they just throw emails on, and then you copy and paste them, and you hope you don't make a mistake in the email that you send out to somebody. I think that's kind of like what a lot of us do. We have a database that we can save emails and we can have templates in there, as well as our contract software allows that. So I did go through and I have everything broken out by buyer, seller, if the agent takes care of it, if our admin takes care of it, every email template is in there. And I'm happy to share this with you guys too. It's
Yeah,
a lot.
I'm gonna put my email in here because it seems like you guys have a lot of awesome templates and stuff that I'd love to look at and share with everyone. And I hold a mastermind in my brokerage once a month, so I can pass that around and kind of give them the deets for this. So that'd be awesome. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And what I can also tell you guys from being in the business for 16 years and really starting just not having any idea in real estate to where I'm at now, we all need to work together. The industry gets better if we help each other. So if there is someone in your brokerage or in your market that really does a great job, reach out to them. The top producing agents are not going to be offended that you say, hey, I saw what you're doing and I really like how you're doing business. Can I use this? They're going to appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Colorado, there's 47,000 licensed agents. Only 26,000 of them are realtors. But, when I started having all of these emails put together, like one of them is I have an email to the other agent when we submit an offer that speaks about our client. It talks about our team. It attaches them to the lender and it gives them some insight. I now see that email a lot. I do about 50% of my business is listings, and I get those emails from people now. And at first I was like, man, people are ripping me off on this. But it's making our industry better. So as you're seeing those things, keep sharing, keep R&Ding things, ripping off and duplicating. There is nothing original in real estate anymore. So.
And I think being organized is huge. I'm not the most organized person. I've made it work so far, but I'm not. I mean, even from like the very last part of like, hey, can you give me a referral on Google or, Facebook and stuff? I forget that all the time, but it's keeping track of all these little things that really add up to big stuff. So that was great. So I'm going to throw my email in there.
Absolutely. And I can get all those out to everybody next week. I do have a template for basically every single part of the transaction, including the after stuff like, hey, we'd love a review. It gives our email even gives an example of what they want in a review. We don't want someone just to say, hey, 5 stars for the Knoll team. We want them to say what they enjoyed working with us. So we really coach our clients through every part of the process. I'll share all these emails with you guys and you can see they're all labeled like buyer, seller, and it's kind of our code in our team, but they're pretty self-explanatory. So.
Piper,
I just
Piper,
want to
what's
say,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Merlin.
yeah, I just want to say thanks for joining us, Piper. Great information. Having systems in place, you can tell when you're working with another agent on the other side when they have systems in place. One place where I really see it is when you're under contract and what's that first email that goes out, when they give you a copy of the signed agreement and the next steps. I think is huge, setting the expectation and just raising that standard of professionalism. So loved your presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. This is really fun. And my email, you send anything to team@theknollteam.com. Piper at the Knoll team is also me directly, but send it to my team because that's my system. If I don't get it taken care of, Richie, my chief of staff, will have a response to you guys within about 90 minutes. But we're going to put together everything that we're happy to share. It does take a little bit of time on our side, so we can get that out next week. So give me a couple days to get everything out to you guys.
You got it. Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
Piper, as you were evaluating, one quick question I think that would be beneficial to everybody, including myself, would be like the leveraging technology for these systems. Like you don't have this on an Etch-a-Sketch going and trying to like get your checklist down and whatnot. So do you want to throw out some quick systems or technologies that your team implements and uses to be able to be super efficient?
Yeah, absolutely. So having a team, we are a team that truly works as a team. You might deal with me or Richie or Brandon or John, but it's important that everybody knows everything going on. So we use a database called Follow Up Boss. It is a little bit spendy. It's about $5,000 for the year, but if you have a team that's producing a high level of business, it's very well worth it. It records phone calls. You can send text through it. Every email is captured. So I can go into there and know what's going on with the client without having to call my team to ask, which is really nice. The other thing is we use a lot of Google Google Suite. So like the getting to know you stuff is all in Google Forms. So we can just send a link out to our clients and we can embed it in an email where it's just click here for this form, pops right up to it, and then everybody in the team gets those responses back. Once we get those responses back, Richie, my chief of staff, he goes through and he adds everything into our database. So people don't need to reference that form all the time. He saves it in there, but we have fields, all of the custom fields for questions in our database as well. So we can pull a list of, hey, who's red wine drinkers? Send them out red wine. So it really makes those processes very simple. I'm not a tech person though. Like that's as tech savvy as I get. I need it to be really easy. I need it to be streamlined and be like 3 clicks.
I was going to add to that, and you just kind of answered my question. So I've been thinking about this, and I have not done as good of a job as documenting systems as you have, and definitely start it sooner than later. Because if you get 8 years into the business and then try to do it, it's a lot harder. That's what I'm experiencing now. But have you ever, because I find that I'm better at, instead of typing an email to a client or whatever it is, I just like to pick up my phone and send a video text or whatever the thing is. Have you considered building out the buyer, let's just say the buyer and the seller system, in a way that they get to this stage, it's like an if then this then that type of system, and then this video goes out and it's like, hey, you've now gone under contract, here are the next 2 things to expect in the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a lot of our emails that we send out, especially the under contract, inspection, clear to close, several of them, we do have a video in there that the team has put together. Like we talk about for a seller, why it's important that the utility room is really clean. That's the heart of the home. And we talk about small things adding up to big things in a seller or into a buyer's eyes. So we do have little videos we include on there. We're going to reshoot them all this year. That's my 4th quarter project, is to try to reshoot all of the videos, because we don't really look the same as we did a couple of years ago when we did them. I'm getting old.
That's the only challenge. You have to update them a bunch. So,
Exactly.
yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Sam is up next. He's going to be on business. I'm sorry, investment. So this is going to be really important. Probably investing in your company and all that stuff. So make sure you pay attention and follow up with the questions in the chat box then, please. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so investment, the way I took this is I actually went with the route of actually like investing more along the lines of investing in whether it's some sort of an asset, right? So whether it's a property, a rental property, or I do a lot of development work myself. So we're like fix and flips and long-term holds and building a portfolio as far as that aspect of investing. Because I don't know about you all, but I'm not trying to work forever. This is a vehicle. Real estate is a vehicle for me to be able to reinvest what it's very lucrative, right? We'll have months that are crazy and markets that are great. And then people tend to suck at being able to save for retirement because you don't have 401k matching like a lot of other standard corporate style of businesses. It's kind of the wild, wild west, right? So I'm more of going to be speaking a little bit on that investing style of actually trying to set these goals, just like Jordan mentioned, and using the systems like Piper mentioned about creating that it's all on the same line of saying, what is the goal that I want to accomplish? And then how do I backtrack to make that a thing, right? So I will jump in on this. You all can see this okay? Yeah, cool. So real estate investing, I'm going to be speaking on stuff I'm knowledgeable on, and that works in my market. Every market is different and every price point is different. Every asset class is different as well, from single family to multifamily to all of the above.
It's cut off. I'm sorry. Is anyone else seeing that?
You're like zoomed in. Yeah, it's like very zoomed in on the book or whatever you're showing there.
Here, let's figure out why this is deciding to do that. How about now?
There you go.
All right, cool. So going into this, where is now it's not, oh, there it is. All right, so I'm a huge acronyms guy, and I like being able to kind of leave it kind of plain and simple. So you're a badass is one of the things that I like doing. So badass is the focus with acronym, being able to focus on your retirement, investing in yourself, and this doesn't need to be retirement. This could be now, right? So I'm 28 and I have a portfolio of rental properties myself that are generating a passive cash flow for me every month to where I'm financially free at this point already. So that means that all of my assets are driving more income to me than what my expenditures are a month. And therefore, I have the freedom and the choice to be able to do everything. And what you end up finding with that is that it continues to scale, right? So starting with the B is budgeting for an investment. And this could go across, right? You can use these simple principles to be able to go across the board from, whether it's stock, whether it's a property, whether it's short-term rental, long-term rental, anything as a whole, just applying these principles towards that, right? A is assess the market. D is develop a plan. The other A is acquiring the investment. S is securing tenancy, and then the other S is stabilizing the investment. So I'm going to go into it a little bit more detail as we get into it. All right. So the B, budgeting for your investment. All right. These first three phases of the bad is the most important piece of this. And when you're evaluating, because at the end of the day, none of this is a necessary item, right? So you don't want to dip into other funds or go into something that's get yourself where I always say, like, it would bring the entire kingdom down, is the way that I reference it, right? So if you're going into this saying, of course, everybody wants to make money, everybody wants to be able to invest, everybody wants to have rental properties, but everybody's financial situation is different. So you need to be able to stay disciplined to the specific numbers in your profile, because yours is going to be different from mine versus different from Jordan's, Piper's, Merlin's. Everybody's is different. So analyzing your financials truthfully and solidifying the funds you're going to allocate towards that, right? So being able to say, I have $20,000 or I have $10,000, or setting, I need this, right? This goes into whether you have it or whether you're planning for it. Okay. Do not dip into your reserve funds. I will repeat this 1,000 times. When you reserve, like when you overextend yourself or try to dip into reserve stuff, it always will stress the system of what you're selling, of what your current financial situation is, your family setup, all of that. It is not worth it. This is not a necessary thing. People say, well, I'm going to liquidate my retirement fund to be able to get into this. And I said, that makes no sense. You already have executed a plan. You've created a retirement fund. So why would you go ahead and jumble that into something that you don't know that's a little bit more risk? It's much more risky, right? So that is the B associated to it. Going into the A, the assess the market. Okay, so training yourself on the asset class, right? So you're going to make the best decisions when you're educated on that asset class. And this could be, as I said, stocks. It could be for real estate. And then you need to be able to be honest with yourself. Like, is this a feasible thing? So in your guys' market, I was talking with Brandon a little bit before. He was saying the average sales price is around 200, 210. So evaluating what the average carrying cost on a 200,000, or whether you find a place that's 100,000 that needs a little bit of work for a rental, or just real estate specific, and then saying, okay, let's match that to the rent. What is my mortgage? And then what would the cash flow be from that property? And then how does that all look and play, right? And then studying your investment market to be the knowledge broker. I'm ripping this off as well and duplicating as far as being a knowledge broker, right? Being informed on this decision. This is a lot of money. This is like, I always say, it's like buying a Lamborghini or Ferrari. Like real estate in my market is buying 2 to 3 Lamborghinis. And if you were buying 2 or 3 Lamborghinis, you're like, wow, that's a lot. Whereas you say, oh, you're buying a house. So it just puts it a little bit more into perspective over how much in the value of what this is. And you'd probably be super, super specific on spending that amount of money on a vehicle. So why are you not doing the same thing on a house that may be a little bit more laissez-faire, right? Even though we're dealing with real estate a lot more often, it's like putting ourselves in the shoes of our consumers that we work with on a daily basis, which is, it's a new thing. They're nervous. You need to hold your hand. You need to do all of these other items, right? So D is developing a plan, okay? Stick to this plan, creating a pro forma. I've done an example of one of the investments that I'm exploring right now at the end of this. And we'll get into that as far as like develop a plan and stick to it. Okay. Create a detailed pro forma, which is like a financial analysis of that, whatever investment is. And then seeing if you have the budget and there's a market for you to execute on that. Right. And if your market doesn't have it, I'd be happy to communicate, like I'm personally investing in other markets as well. So not just my market, think bigger and think outside of that, because just like this, I'm in DC. Jordan's in Chicago, you guys are all in Pennsylvania, and Piper's in Denver. So you've got access to other people at different price points and different markets that may be performing better than maybe your local market, right? So becoming that knowledge broker in the various areas of saying, I want to do real estate or I want to do stock. It's kind of all based on developing that plan, but without having the budget for you to be able to do that, right? And knowing what your financials are, and then the assessing of whatever market that is to see if it's feasible, it doesn't even make sense to develop that plan, right? So another big piece is like setting the timelines for each of your investments, right? So knowing what are your exit strategies. Is it a long-term hold? Is it a short-term rental that's like an Airbnb, and VRBOs are coming huge now. So people are like, you got to know your regulations in on each one of your states and your cities, because they're different in every city. So in DC, if it's not a primary residence, it's limited to a half a year. And I don't want any of my investments sitting for 180 days. It just doesn't make sense. So you may look in other markets that would potentially be a little bit more flexible on that don't have those regulations, right? And being able to then tie it all together within that plan. Okay, then going to the ask part of this, the acquisition of the party or the property, or this is the investment as a whole, right? So it's time to implement and execute on it using your plan that you already set up to acquire and purchase that investment. Like, stick to that plan. It's going to be eye candy out there that's just pushing it a little bit outside of this, but this is a purely numbers driven scenario. Any investment cannot be emotional. It has to be numbers driven. Okay. And if it doesn't fit outside of that, you're going to be stressing something else out in your entire system that could bring the kingdom down, right? If it sits vacant, right? And all this goes into your plan of being able to say, I have an extra cash flow with an extra maybe $2,000 to $5,000 a month, and the property that I would be acquiring has that. So even if it sits vacant, it's not going to crumble everything or stress me out and miss my own mortgage payments for the roof over my head, right? So you need to have this flexibility in be able to essentially account for those items if it was to do that. And this is property specific. Stock obviously would be a little bit different, but since most of us realtors and in the real estate industry was more focusing in on that. So the S in this is securing tenancy. This could be essentially filling the goal of that plan and making sure that you use the market data that you already evaluated, setting the rent and or the value of it, and then filling it to perform in cash flow. Obviously, you're not going to want to have something that's a loss leader that every month you're going to be just paying money out and not having anything come in. And then you're like, why am I even doing this, right? Some areas that may be high volatile areas that you think will appreciate a lot over time, and you've got a financial situation where you're burning cash and you need to put it somewhere, may not be the worst idea, right? So I've got some clients that are high profile clients that are bleeding money that they just, I really don't care if this, which is a great problem to have, but I don't care if it loses me money every month. Let's go ahead and just do this because I think this over time will still be worthwhile. And then there's tax incentives to all of these, and there's different numbers, but again, every city, state has different regulations on it and different values on it. So you just need to hone it into whatever that market is, right? So monitoring it like a hawk, it's just like when you have a listing, you just have to, it's organic. You need to be able to evaluate it and consistently stay in it. I've got some right now that are vacant that I'm needing to change what I originally had forecasted. I need to update it. It's better for me to fill them, even if it's a few $100s less a month, than it is for me to have them sit and just say, well, I said I'm going to do $2,400 a month. It isn't the best thing, and it's not always going to work out. So you just have to look at the overall health of it, right? Then last one is the stabilizing the investment, right? Reevaluating the numbers as they fall. So however it ends up being tenant secured, reevaluate it, update that plan, and create a long projected format plan of what that's going to do for you over time. How much money is it going to earn you? How much is going to allow for you to lend off of it? Because it's a very scaling situation where after 2 years, you end up being able to get a landlord tag where it ends up being an asset versus it being something that's a debt. So then you can actually lend off of the money that you're borrowing to lend even more money. And then they say, just like a business where when we started, we're 1099s, right? So we have to be able to prove for 2 years for the bank to feel that we're worthwhile to be able to lend us money, right? Similar thing with any asset class. So you have 2 years worth of performance averaged out. If it's proving that it's making money, the bank says, great, we're gonna take that debt off of your books. We're gonna actually end up turning it into good debt. and then allowing you to lend off of it for the future to be able to secure more properties. So you can essentially double at any point in time after that point in time. And then you don't have to wait 2 years every asset. It's just after that 2 years, they'll immediately qualify you. So if I bring a new asset into my portfolio, it immediately ups the value of the portfolio after a secured lease, and then I can lend more on that, right? Another big piece of nugget is like leaning on a property manager. If you don't have experience on this, average property management is anywhere between 8 to 12%. So I would say lean on them. They're the experienced ones in this, and they're going to be it's going to be consumed over the life of you having that investment. And it's going to pay dividends in the overall health of that house, for this example being a house. For the lease up, making sure that your lease is a strong lease, that there's nothing, if they walk away, that they're still reliable, they're still responsible for the investment or for their monthly rent. And then any of the maintenance in the property condition, they're going to be able to make sure it stays in good shape and be able to give you the assistance on saying, what is my operational account that I should be setting aside every month, rather than going and spending and buying a new Louis Vuitton purse or going on that trip with this extra money. I need to be saving initially for some operations accounts, right? And then be able to, just like when you're having buckets for your taxes, which is, I'm a huge account bucket person, right? So I have like 12 accounts, right? And each one of them is for a specific purpose. Reserves, I've got my taxes, I've got my investment account. So every time it gets to the amount that I'm looking for, in my case right now, it's signifying around 75 grand. Whenever it's 75 grand in that account, I know immediately that's time for me to purchase a new property. There's no questions. I've still got my reserves. I've still got my taxes. I'm not dipping into any of those, so that when the end of the year happens, or if life happens, that I'm stressing the rest of my system out. Doesn't really exist in my world, because it's disciplined to be able to sit into each, right? And then parking lot thoughts. This is kind of what I do, to just throw random thoughts, and would start, actually, I'm going to do some picking brains of you all, because it's really specific to each person of what they're looking for. Oftentimes the higher number of the units is a higher risk, but also the higher amount of reward or cash flow associated to a property, generally speaking, but it's usually a higher amount of entry into that to that specific asset class. But a lot of times, if you get a 4-unit, it's going to be being able to yield 4 to 6x of whatever that single unit would be. So, and then what are your end goals specifically? Like, so my end goal is to hit a certain amount monthly of what I want to have for passive cash flow a month, and then being able to try to drive a portfolio that then may be able to be sold off, right? So if you can group it, then I am going to be able to evaluate, do I want to keep this as it performs, or am I going to sell it to somebody? After I do that, maybe restart and use my skill sets and the lessons learned to be able to do it again. Is it for retirement? Is it for extracurriculars or ongoing activities? You know, being able to dream that out, like Jordan was mentioning, like dream that out as far as this is where I want to be, and then backlogging it and backtracking to do it. It's not rocket science. It's just staying disciplined and being able to do the initial work to be able to then execute on that, right? So at this point, I would love to get some involvement from people. We still only have, and then I'll go into an example pro forma that I have that is on an investment that I'm evaluating, but we still only have one person, one brave soul, Merlin, showing his screen, but I would love, there's a lot of us on here, right? There's like 15, 16. I'd love some more individuals to pop on the screen. I feel like a teacher from COVID, where COVID-19, where everybody just gets black screens and they're just doing that for the entirety of the year. But would love to get some involvement and then be able to kind of answer any questions associated with that too.
I have a question, Sam. When you're calculating your cost for holding, I guess the taxes for capital gains is pretty much the same anywhere you go. Do not try to hold on for at least a year to avoid the capital gains on a short-term sale.
If it's a short-term sale, it depends, right? So, but it's definitely factored in for me. It's factored in if I'm doing most of my, I purposefully extend the life of the investments that I'm doing past a year. So mine are traditionally average anywhere between 14 to 16 months end to end, close to close. And the reason I do that is just to your point exactly, where there's capital gains tax. If there's under 12 months of the same year you acquire, they'll hit you with an additional capital gains tax versus you're going to have to pay it if it's not a primary residence on anything. But at the same time, if you extend it past a year, it's not going to hit you as high of a rate, just like the income brackets that you hit with taxes. So I purposefully extend past that.
Yeah, right now with the value so high, it's been a lot easier to calculate because even if you were to sell short time, we can recoup our money just simply in the what it's selling for in comparison to before we rehabbed it in comparison to afterwards. But that's going to change, you know, when things level out and you're really only selling at market value, you have to take that into consideration.
Most definitely. And then included on that, that's where most people fail, right? Most people fail because they don't have a construction or a development style background. If they are going the route of improvement on a property where they say, let's do a fix and flip. If you don't have construction knowledge and you don't have any individual to advise you on that. I personally got lucky in the scenario where my dad's a general contractor and owns his own business and doing commercial construction, but knowing and being able to learn in that industry and knowing what things cost is where if the numbers don't fit, I don't do it. I don't need to, but if it works, then great. So I do anywhere between 2 to 4 projects a year, and it turns anywhere between 8 to 12 units. And a lot of my business, just to, but it is foundationally on the development work that I do. And I get a lot of clients from open houses, and I do a lot of renovation work for my clients as well. Because as I'm sure in your guys' market and everywhere else, it's just so competitive that there's no real perfect home. So you just have to create it.
Sam, I'm curious on that. And I don't know the answer, but so you just mentioned you're also, doing this for yourself. You're taking your active capital you're generating from your real estate sales, you're investing that for your own personal developments and investments. How are you positioning yourself? I think a lot of us on this call, like, we want to invest for ourselves, but we also want to help others achieve that. How are you positioning that yourself, to attract those types of people into your business?
Right. So I work with a lot of investors and developers. And so again, it goes back to evaluating what is the goal for that specific person. If they're just looking for a buy and hold and saying that I've got this excess sum of $200,000, right? Which is just simple numbers for, in our market, traditionally an acquisition for an investment property would be anywhere from 500,000 up to about $1 million, and then way beyond that as well. But usually with investment properties, you're going to need a minimum of around 20% down. It got a little bit tighter with COVID, and so they've actually made it up to 25 on some of these scenarios. But so you need a minimum of that to be able to get in. So they'll come to me saying, I've got $200,000 and this is what I'm looking to do. And I say, great, let's evaluate. And so the way that I do that differently for myself is that my evaluation is different from theirs. Most of my clients don't have the ability or the skill set. Like, people will call me and say, the floors are falling in, it's a health hazard, I don't know what to do with this. That is totally my deal. Crack houses, drug houses, all of the above is what I have picked up because they're not habitable. And I'm going to be tearing them down to the ground anyway. So that's very different from my clients, right? Where most of them don't have that skill set. And then at the same time, since I'm addicted to and have the skill set within that, I'm always finding stuff, and I limit myself to whatever my plan is, to your point of saying, where do I want to be? And I stick to my plan, even unless there's very rarely where there's this like massive home run that I need to go outside of it. I stick to my numbers. So I still find other good opportunities that then I'll pass to my clients as well. But I'm also upfront saying, I do this actively myself. So I'm going to likely take the good ones as it fits within mine. But if there's anything that spills over, which oftentimes occurs, I'd probably say at least 1 to 2 a quarter, then it goes to my investors. So.
Thank you.
Sam, so did you start out as a realtor and then got into all the flipping and holding and stuff?
I started in as a developer. Okay. So I came on the opposite end of this.
Well, you did it a little backwards. No, a lot of people do start that way. But is there anyone that in this meeting that isn't in the position quite yet, but that's getting ready to like buy and hold or flip or anything like that? What kind of percentage from your sales do you keep to help fund your projects later on? Is there any sort of
great question? So my target as of right now has been for my specific buy and holds that are long-term. My target is I isolate around 300,000 is my acquisition price. So my cost for doing that gets me to be around $75,000 is what my investment will need to be for that asset class. So I then back that up saying, what does my year look like? What are my goals? What is my business plan? And then if I want to do, so this summer, I set a goal that I wanted to acquire 4 new investment properties in that investment realm, which means I needed 300,000 cash to do that. What does my year look like for this to occur? To be able to then isolate in acquire. So and then just breaking it down. If you want to do this over a year, say, and this is what I usually say, just set a goal of at least having 1 new investment property over the next 12 months. If you need 75,000 for that to occur, break it down and divide it by 12, and or depending on how aggressive you go, but that goes into that financial analysis phase, right? So going and saying, what can I actually afford to be able to not necessarily go back to your college lifestyle of eating ramen to save pennies, but still enjoy your life, but then have excess cash to be able to then implement it to a purchase. And I tend to say, people will ask like, well, what should my cash flow be associated to a property, right? I usually say it's a minimum of $750 a month, positive cash flow minimum, because you're going to have operational expenses that you don't think about. If a hot water heater goes out, if you have 1 month of vacancy, all of these other factors, some people will get excited about 300, 500. I personally, and this is my only opinion, this is my opinion only, it hasn't been worth it from my experience and what I have seen to do anything less than that. I actually target $1,000 minimum a month per door or per door. So if I've got a 4 unit in our portfolio, you've got a 5 unit, have single family homes, townhomes, depending on where it's at, each door needs to cash flow at that.
Okay, but that might depend on the market that you're in.
100%. But then the average cost will also depend too.
Right. Thanks.
You know, so if your market's 200,000, like for the 4 units in our market, it's like 800,000 for a 4 unit. So that would get you 4 houses. So depending on where that scenario is, you could still be cash flowing what you would think at least around 2,000 to 3,000 a month off of those investments. So
when you say cash flow, you're saying additional from any other expenses that you pay out from everything.
Right. So you've got your mortgage, which is up at the top. What is the expense to what is my carrying cost, which is the expense of the mortgage. And then I always add in 10% operational costs associated to it for the property, right? Every year is about 10%, usually is what the simple numbers would be to put back towards the property. And then I set aside for that every month for it to be going into an operation account for that house. So I don't touch any of these. And if you end up having a great year, you don't need anything, icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be caught with a portfolio that 6 hot water heaters go at once. And then I'm like, I went and bought my Lamborghini and I spent all of my reserves across the board. So now I'm stuck, of which I still drive my 2012 Ford Fusion and I love it. So
Merlin, I see that you have a question. Sam, do you cover any of your rentals with a home warranty? That's a good one. That's a good
great
idea.
question. I encourage the home warranty, and sometimes you can also cheat by getting your tenants to be able to get to build that in as well. So you can, I always encourage getting renter's insurance for any of the stuff that occurs. So that limits the expense that comes back to me. It's like $10 a month. So I always have tenants do that versus when they come back to me, I want them to stay. If they say, well, something flooded and it ruined all my personal items, not only do I have to deal with that, I also need to potentially deal with their items and keeping them happy. So renter's insurance and home warranty, but I personally do not do home warranties. The reason is because I am in the development field and I'm in construction. So I've got my own crews that it's just much more efficient for me spending $500 across the board, times whatever, to be able to then just apply that to the improvement specifically. So I've got guys that roll from project to project that are pretty much on payroll. So if we need them to stop at the end of the day, I've got a very focused market of where my rentals are too.
Excellent.
A great question.
Yeah, totally. I really like the order that we went in from Jordan. You kind of put everything into, perspective of, getting your goals set for the year to Piper, executing on those goals and getting everything organized. And now we're into what are you going to do with once you make all your money? So we went in a really great order for the day that I have a lot of notes. I'm going to hate retyping this. So, all right. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Another
No?
little hack with those notes is that you can use Fiverr, or you can just take a picture and send it, and pay somebody like $5 to do it, by the way. But
Really? I didn't know they did that there.
everything, you can put any task you don't want, you can put up, and people will do it and save you your time and headaches. That's one of the first things that also have efficiencies. Just
Yeah, I got a lot of tasks for them. No.
that's you scale yourself, man.
Yeah, absolutely. No, think smarter, not harder, or work smarter, not harder. All right, guys, we are just about out of time for the day. I want to thank the speakers for coming on. That was really, really awesome. I've listened to them on the quarterly YPN national meetings, and I knew this was going to be good. So thank you so much, guys, for coming out, and thank you for the speakers for presenting today. That was great.
Appreciate you guys. Grateful to be here and be able to share.
All right, everyone. I threw my email in there. I'll reach out to everyone individually as well here in a day or two. And I look forward to getting all your, stuff so I can share with everyone and learn more myself. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us. And I've dropped everybody's information again. It came in all funny, but Piper's, Jordan, and myself, all of our information's there. Reach out to us. We're here to help, and anything we can do, and always love talking. So.
All right, excellent.
Definitely.
All right, guys. I'll
Thanks,
see you.
everybody.
Sam, I'll actually be in your area soon, so maybe we can grab like coffee or something. and talk
Always,
more.
anybody that comes into DC, let me know, and the first beer's on me.
No, you got it. Say no more. I'm there. See you guys.
All right, take care.
Bye. All right, John. I'll see you later, dude.